What's up, human geographers? We are on 5.8 von Thunen's model. So we're essentially picking up where we left off with the bid-rent theory. Von Thunen's model is kind of like the foundation for that. It holds those principles, and every single year there are always questions on von Thunen's model for agriculture. So you need to describe how the von Thunen model is used to explain patterns of agricultural production at various scales. And this model helps to explain rural land use by emphasizing the importance of transportation costs associated with distance from the market. However, regions of specialty farming do not always conform to von Thunen's concentric rings. So this is where we left off on the last objective. So bid rent theory, this is this idea that the value of land is influenced by its relationship to the market or its distance to the market. Typically, we see land further away, less expensive, so we see more extensive farming practices there. Land that's closer to the market or city centers is more expensive, so those tend to be more intensive type of farming practices. So a little bit of context on von Thunen's model for rural agricultural land use. So this dude was a German farmer and economist, and he published a few works that dealt with these topics. And essentially, he outlined these spatial patterns of farming practices that he noticed within his own community. So his theory has a few assumptions. So first is that we all live on this isotropic plane. So essentially, all the land is flat. And the physical environment is same everywhere. Definitely not true, right? There's all sorts of different geographic features which can influence the way that transportation is able to move. Also, that there are no barriers to transportation, which is definitely not true, especially depending on what the infrastructure might be like in a particular area. And also, farmers were using ox carts to transport goods to market during this time period. That's not very common anymore in many places. So we have all kinds of technology now to kind of help with this transportation situation. So overall, like this big idea. So this is what his model looks like. We have these concentric rings. Right here in the center, we have the urban center, that market center. And essentially, transportation costs are proportional to the distance from the market. So again, like using this bid rent theory idea that the further you are away from urban centers, the less expensive land is. Also, perishability of the product, so how quickly it goes bad, and transportation costs to the market factor into the farmer's decisions regarding agricultural practices. So farmers are going to want to be able to get their perishable goods to the market as quickly as possible. So this whole model is taking a spatial perspective of agriculture. So it really is this idea of the why of where, like why are certain agricultural practices present in particular areas. So we're going to go through each of the rings here. So for this center area right here, the market or urban center, this assumed that there was a market located in an isolated, self-sufficient state without external influences. So that's not quite the case. We don't typically have like only, city centers or urban centers with nothing around it. Now we see a lot more suburban areas. Places way more interconnected now. Also, the assumption of commercial agriculture system in which farmers will maximize their profits. Our agricultural system is different, right, with all these technologies. And it also assumed that there was a single market destination for a farmer's harvest. So now we have like a global market. So it's not only so much about getting to a particular urban center, it's more like to multiple urban centers. So this first ring outside, von Thunen said, in this area we have dairy farming and market gardening agriculture happening here. So basically dairy and produce. So the perishability of these particular items is pretty pretty high, right? They spoil quickly and easily. So they need to be located near the markets to ensure fresh products. So during his time period, that absolutely was true, right? So just a few examples, like let's say various berries or fruits or certain vegetables, you do want them close by, and definitely milk and milk products. For transportation, these can be difficult to transport and must be transported quickly. This is intensive farming due to the high value of land and located near the central market. Then for the next concentric ring, we have timber. So this is like a ring of forest. These are not perishable. However, because of the transportation of it being difficult and expensive, because of the weight, right? When you knock down a tree, even if you chop it up, like transporting all that wood is expensive. So firewood was absolutely essential in the 1800s for fires for cooking, for heat, and also to build things. So that's why this is next, right? Because of the weight and the cost of what it would take to transport it. Then we have in that next ring crops that are grains and cereals. These are far less perishable. They last way longer. They're also not fragile. They're not bulky or heavy. They're far easier to transport to the market. This is extensive farming because profits due to cost of land. So they are further away. The land is far less expensive. And then finally, the outermost ring, this is livestock ranching. So it's not they're not perishable when they're alive. So in terms of transportation, it's pretty low cost because these little animals, they would just have them walk to the market, like walk to the slaughterhouses themselves. So transportation was not expensive. They move themselves. The land is less desirable because it's much further from the market, which makes it far less expensive. So ranchers can rent or buy a lot of land in order to have like these large herds. So some limitations. There are, like I said, many markets that farmers might want to have access to now. We have a global supply chain, and we live in a globalized world. People are no longer limited to their immediate vicinity. Food preservation techniques like tinning and refrigeration and all these crazy preservatives that we have, food can last, right? You can transport food quite a long distance and it will not spoil. Also, improved transportation infrastructure. We have like shipping, we have trains, roads, air routes. Like there's so many ways to transport goods, not just like ox carts. And finally, government policies about land use to encourage growth of a particular crop. So now we have also more government interventions in order to that farmers have to consider as they're deciding where and what they're going to farm. Another big one is that wood is no longer used as a major source of heating, cooking, or building material. It still is, right? But not in the way that it used to be in the 1800s. So forests are no longer near communities. This is just in general, right, around the world. And also we have non-isotropic planes. So physical features absolutely impact the shape of this model. So let's say this would be far more accurate to what it would look like in the real world, right? Where we have all kinds of physical landscapes and various, maybe obstacles or maybe even things that help facilitate movement. And then now we have specialty farming. So we do have regions that, because of climate or because of that particular soil, they are specializing in a particular type of agricultural product. That was something that he did not